Well, India has failed to reduce its purchases of Iranian oil. And if it doesn't do so, President Barack Obama may be forced to impose sanctions on one of Asia's most important nations, Obama administration officials said yesterday. A decision to levy penalties under a new U.S. law restricting payments for Iranian oil could come as early as June 28th, according to several U.S. officials who spoke on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the issue. Given the level of trade, and in particular oil, between Iran and India, targeting an Indian entity that facilitates Iran's access to international financial market should be top of mind for the U.S. Treasury. Avi Jorish, a former Treasury Department official who is now a Washington-based consultant on deterring illicit finance, said in an interview. The U.S. law, which targets oil payments made through Iran's central bank, applies to any country that doesn't make a significant reduction in its Iranian crude oil purchases during the first half of this year. If India fails to cut Iranian imports sufficiently, Obama may be compelled to bar access to U.S. banking system for any Indian bank processing oil payments through Iran's central bank, the U.S. official said. While India hasn't asked its refiners to stop processing Iranian crude, the government has told processors in the Southeast Asian nation to seek alternate supplies and gradually reduce their dependence on the Persian Gulf state due to increasing pressure from the U.S. in recent weeks. 3 Indian officials with direct knowledge of the situation stated, India hasn't significantly cut imports this year because refiners' annual crude term deals with Iran typically run from April to March. The planned reductions will start only when new annual contracts begin next month, the Indian officials said, declining to be identified because they aren't authorized to speak to the media. India bought an average of 328,000 barrels a day of Iranian crude in the first 6 months of last year, making it the number 3rd buyer behind China and Japan and ahead of South Korea. Iran is the number 2 producer in the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Oil Minister S. Jaipa Reddy, Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee, and Foreign Secretary Ranjan Mathai have said India will continue to buy Iranian oil to meet its growing energy needs. While the Indian government has an excellent record of enforcing United Nations sanctions on Iran, India has objected to unilateral U.S. sanctions, according to U.S. official.
The Gulf Cooperation Council head said all 6 Arab Gulf states will close their embassies in Syria to protest the crackdown in the country. The embassies of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, and Kuwait in Syria will shut down. The 6 countries have denounced the mass slaughter committed by the regime. Abdulatif Al-Zayani, head of the Gulf Cooperation Council, asked the international community to act urgently and decisively stop the killings and massacres in Syria, as well as the gross violations of the dignity and legitimate rights of the Syrians. At least Saudi Arabia and Bahrain had already announced the closure of their mission in Damascus before the collective decision. Saudi Arabia called back its diplomats from Syria, and Bahrain followed through the next day. Saudi Arabia, who has been very critical of the Syrian regime, withdrew and expelled its Syrian ambassador since August last year in Damascus.
The International Monetary Fund today approved a second rescue loan of 28 billion euros for Greece as part of the large 237 billion euro rescue plan. The IMF said it would give out the 28 billion euro loan in equal tranches over a 4-year period. The IMF has joined the European Union's attempt to save the debt-ridden Greece. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde said in a statement, Greece has made tremendous efforts to implement wide-ranging painful measures over the past 2 years in the midst of a deep economic recession and a difficult social environment. She said the challenges still facing Greece are the high level of public debt, a large competitiveness gap, and an undercapitalized banking system. Lagarde said the new fund-supported program will help Greece address these challenges while remaining in the Eurozone bloc. The IMF loan approval came days after Eurozone ministers signed off on their part of a huge €237 billion rescue plan for Greece. The rescue plan is comprised of €130 billion in new financing and €107 billion of debt reduction by the private sector. Meanwhile, the IMF also said that Greece's economy will exit recession only by 2014 after it made an announcement of a new bailout loan for the debt-laden country. The international lender estimated that Greece's economy will shrink to 4.8% this year and will experience zero growth in 2013, followed by an annual rate of 2.5% in 2014. IMF estimated that Greece's gross domestic product, a measure of economic activity, fell 6.9% in 2011. The IMF forecast that Greece's debt level would climb to 167% of GDP in 2013 and then steadily fall to 117% by 2020. That would put Greece below that 120% maximum debt to GDP ratio required under the new European Union IMF bailout plan for the country.